Hello and welcome to round 3 and 4 of this Lamboghini Super Trofeo mini championship or mini challenge. Where there are only 4 rounds of the championship, hence why we call it the mini cup. But as you guys can see, 23 cars now on circuit for the 10-minute qualifying with just under 9 minutes to go. This will be for a 30-minute race around the legendary Belgian circuit of Zolder. Very tricky circuit, especially in ACC. Something I've done a few laps around and spent a few times in the wall. So not an easiest of all circuits. It does look simple from the track layout, but definitely not an easy circuit. So my predictions for this weekend, when I say this weekend, I'm so used to watching live racing, I always end up saying that. But my predictions for tonight's race, we saw De Jong and the Cruiser, Lucas the Cruiser, going at it. We also learned that De Jong, a man from the Netherlands, so going into Zandvoort, he'll be very happy to be going to his home circuit. Only 3 points separate the two of them away from from Trofeo, who's only 5 points behind the lead. There are 9 points up for grab, or 10 points up for grabs to the winner, and a point for fastest lap. So it is able. There will be a lot of shuffling throughout the championship. I hope to see. And this will be the last 2 rounds that will determine that, as we ride on board now with Marius Danhuizen, as he goes to set a qualifying lap time, or one of the first. I think he's still on his out lap actually. But this circuit is rather difficult. You see this left-hander here, the way it tightens up on you. Very, very difficult, especially in a car like this that can be very tail happy. Now, the one thing we did discuss in the last 2 rounds was the tire degradation on this car is quite drastic. So the graph that exists, there's a graph to every setup challenge on any motorsport vehicle. And that there's always, the up of the graph and the down of the graph is very much, the curve does dip quite drastically on these cars. So you'll be thinking you've got all the grip in the world and all the rubber in the world to make the end of the race. And unfortunately, you'll be proven wrong, which we saw quite often at the first 2 rounds earlier last week. So it was difficult for the guys to keep their tires at a reasonable temperature throughout the race distance. And also we did discuss the setup changes being done between qualifying and the race. So a lot of drivers struggling to get themselves settled between qualifying and the race. As we ride on board now with the Cruiser pulling well over to the left-hand side. I wonder if he's looking for space or heading his way back to the pits. Not happy with the setup. Definitely heading his way back to the pits. Not happy with the setup. He had a bit of drama at Monza, getting T-boned by his own teammate, as we ride on board now with Cormac from Cormac GP. One of his relatives, Killian, also in this field. But Cormac from Cormac GP, he did quite well in the second of the 2 rounds last week at Monza. And I'm sure he'll be hoping to move himself up the field with only points down to 10th place. It's going to be a fight underneath the top 10. But qualifying, not so important here at Zolder. There are passing opportunities throughout the track. But when we do head to Zandvoort later on tonight, qualifying is going to be very important. As we have a look now at Lucas the Cruiser, putting himself on pole position here at Zolder with 1 minute 31.725, just 0.4 ahead of Killian. Killian, I haven't spoken much about him because I haven't seen much about him in the first 2 rounds. So interesting to see him up there. Boardman, also one of the front runners from the earlier part this week with Muscat. I know Muscat been testing for the Silverstone 12-hour recently as well. He was on circuit with me not so long ago. But he's just down there in 4th place, only 0.8 off the pace, as we head into the last 5 minutes of qualifying. So we will be seeing a lot of shuffling throughout the field. There is space on this track, so traffic shouldn't be as much of a problem as it's going to be in Zandvoort, as we ride on board now with Andy Boardman. 132.5 is his best. He's heading up to the start-finish line. Is he going to be able to better that 132.5? We shall soon see as he crosses over the line now. He does better himself, going into 2nd place, only 0.1 off that of Lucas Cruiser. The Cruiser, Lucas Cruiser. We have seen the habit of Cruiser to throw in the last lap wonder. The last lap of qualifying wonder, he is very good at it. And it has been something he's done in the last 2 rounds, putting himself in pole in the last dying minutes of the qualifying session. Interesting to me, though, is De Jong, as I'm about to say it, he goes and sets a lap time 5th fastest, so 0.8 off. De Jong, we did speak a bit after the last race, and he said he hadn't spent any time in the car prior to the 5 minutes of practice he got before the race. So he was saying he'll actually spend some time in the car now and do some practice. So that'll be interesting to see as we look at the 2. Ryan Meenan, it's Killian and Cormac, 3rd and 4th currently on the grid, 0.4 and 0.5 off the pace. So they've been spending some time testing here, I'm sure, the 2 of them together. as we ride on board with with Killian from Bow Racing. Fourth at the moment, heading into the one of the last hairpins of the lap. Just after this is the last chicane and pretty much the last set of corners for the lap. Running slightly wide there on the exit. It's not going to do well to better his time and move himself back into the top three that's being taken away from him by Andy Boardman. De Winter, man, I haven't heard anything of or spoken of at all. Didn't see him at all in the first 2 rounds. He just set himself a lap time of 1 minute 30.5, going a second quicker than anybody else in the circuit. So a blistering lap from De Winter and knocking Cruiser off his very comfortable pedestal he's had the first 2 rounds of this mini season. Flashing a driver in front of him, just let him know he's on a hot lap and just requesting that he moves out of his way, but it doesn't seem to be going well for him. He will get another lap in now after this though, so he doesn't need to stress too much about this ruining his lap unless he can't get past before turn 1. The driver in front just pulling over and giving him the space he needs to go set his flyer. He's now only 0.6 off the pace with traffic, so he looks like he's got the pace that De Winter has as well. It's weird to see such a mistake. An unfortunate mistake from Cruiser with only 2 minutes, just under 3 minutes left to go. Is he going to be able to get another flat-out lap in? Right on board now with a Killian. 132.1 is quite far off the pace of De Winter with a 130.5, but well within the pace of everybody else. As we look from 3rd down to 10th, only separated by a second. So we have what we call the aliens in the sim world, and that is De Winter and the Cruiser, Lucas the Cruiser. De Jong joins the party now, getting himself up into 4th place. 1.4 seconds off the pace though. I'm very surprised to see that. I honestly thought it would have been Cruiser versus De Jong for this championship and for this race especially. But De Winter coming up and upsetting the apple cart as well as Boardman. Looking further down the field now, we have a look at a Pride from big mistake there from Killian. That's not going to be good for his lap. Heading over the line now, he's still got another lap to do. As we ride on board now with Cody Pride from How Does This Car Work? Quite ironic that. Cody showed some good pace throughout the first and second round, but very mixed fortunes. And I think he could have done quite well and run quite a bit further up the grid, but at the moment still only sitting in 11th place. 1 place away from point scoring in the race. This is only qualifying though with 1 minute and 30 seconds left to go. It is quite late here in Zolder, 6:15 in the evening, so the track temps are going to be quite cold, which might help with the tire degradation that we've been seeing throughout this championship, first and second round as well. A lot of drivers going off, a lot of drivers spitting it wide, especially during the later parts of the race. Andy Boardman just slowed up there by another driver. Car number 64 there, getting in his way as he exits the chicane. The sweep as he heads into the chicane. The chicane quite tricky though, because you want to get on the power after it, but there's that little right-hander just after that you have to live for. So quite an interesting section of track this. You can see from the rubber laid down the track is pretty much at its optimum, so a lot of grip for these guys available for these gents. Again, something that might help with the tire degradation we have been seeing. Andy Boardman in that purple livery, purple and green, quite interesting color match that, and the white rims, purple, green, and silver even with them white rims. So very interesting livery there from Andy. Coming over the line now, in 3rd place he is at the moment. Let's see if this lap will move him up at all or any closer. No, unfortunately not. So Boardman still 1.2 seconds off the pace of Lucas the Cruiser. I think Lucas is just going to settle with that 2nd place time as Christian Brawner goes up 2 places from his 12th place spot up into 10th now. 132 point. Felix de Jong, 132 dead. Not what I thought he would be doing around here. I honestly thought he'd probably put a bit more time and a bit more testing in. He has changed his livery, so maybe could spend more time on the track and less time on his livery as he comes around to set his final lap of the session. Maybe about to prove me wrong. Maybe he'll be there, 130.4, 130.3. Maybe he can do it. But as it stands at the moment, 5th place, 1.4 seconds off the pace. With Killian doing quite well up in 4th, Muscat in 6th, and Killian's brother Corbett in 7th. So Rice down in 8th, Torquay in 9th. Torquay, our 3rd man in the championship at the moment. So he's quite far down. He's going to have to move himself quite well high up the field to score decent points. De Jong manages to get himself up into 4th, 0.8 off the pace. So not the greatest of qualifying for De Jong. Oh, 2nd place there, 0.0054 off the pace. Right on the pace of front man there, and Cruiser 131.2. So we've lost De Winter on my list here. De Winter was our pole man. He seems to have removed himself off this list. I'm unsure of what happened there. I'll probably get more information from the guys in the background shortly. But Felix de Jong now in second place. The Cruiser in first. Boardman in third. 131.2 on pole. 0.054 off that. In second place is Felix de Jong. Third place, Andy Boardman, 0.612 off. Killian and Cormac right with each other, fourth and fifth. And, there we go. The Winter is back, right. Okay, so the screen I was looking at was incorrect. The Winter obviously left the server and came back. That's why he disappeared there for a second. So it is the Winter on pole. A whole point. No, my list has now changed again. This is quite odd. I'm sure I'll get the final results before we head into the race one. But Trofeo going to have a lot of work on his hands. He's currently third in the championship. He's down all the way in eighth. So that isn't going to help him much in terms of his championship hopes. But as we look at the grid now, it is Lucas Kreuzer on pole. Felix de Jong in second. Andy Boardman in third. No, Kreuzer in second on my list. Seems to be a bit of a glitch now, as we with 1 minute and 40 before we start the race. I'm sure I'll be getting more information before lights go green. But it is Lucas Kreuzer on pole ahead of Felix de Jong, Andy Boardman in third, Killian in fourth, Cormac in fifth, Muscat in sixth, so Rice in seventh, and Trofeo in eighth. Trofeo needs to get some move on to get a bit of a move on there. He's currently sitting third in the championship, only 3 points off second and 5 off the lead. So he needs to put a little bit of work in there, get himself up at the points haul. There are only points down to 10th. So unlike Formula 1 championships or anything like that, that's not 30 for first and 20 for second, for instance. It is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there isn't a big points haul or a big points gain to be had. So the work has to be put in, and you have to run consistently in the front to win a championship like this. And Trofeo not going to be able to do that from his position currently in 9th place. Handler, in 8th place. Handler down in 9th. Breuner in the 10th spot, rounding out that top 10. Pride is in 11th with the first of the Danhausens, car number 64. I have him on my list as 90, so that's probably Marius. And then not Marius, Moritz. Then down below him will be Verwey, the other of the Danhausen brothers, Marius in 14th. Roland 16th, and Whitelock just behind him. 10 seconds before we go to the start of the warm-up lap. It is Lucas Kreuzer on pole. Our pole man currently sitting on the outside of the circuit. That's because on my list, De Winter should have been on pole. We seem to have lost him somewhere. I'm unsure what's going on there. So De Winter has disappeared off our server. He is not going to be joining us for this race. So that puts Lucas the Cruiser on pole position with the championship contender Felix de Jong. A repeat of what we've had in the second round. Hopefully we see them battle it out like we did in the second round at Monza. It was quite an interesting race to watch. The red, white, and black livery of Cruiser. Just showing off his team there. I'm just going to get the team name now. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm just going to go through my list here. But quite a few drivers that are long-term sim drivers here, so we can see some more pace coming from a few others. So it's Andy Boardman, also quite quick. He's going to be looking to move his way into the front, but 0.6 off the pace of the front two is going to be difficult to turn around. So Sidemax Motorworks is what the Cruiser hails from. Other drivers, his teammate in there is Owen Winlock as well, also from there. But we do have an American in the field as well, and that is Ryan Whitlock. Ryan Whitlock a little bit further down the field than he would have hoped, down in in the pit lane. So unfortunately, Ryan Whitlock will be starting from the pit lane. Our American entrant, he's unable to make the start of the race, so he will be starting from our pit lane here at Zolder. Unfortunately, Wesley De Winter, there he is, down in 24th place. So he has rejoined at the back of the field. That's going to be interesting to see. And see him coming through the field from that far back from GDR Racing. Wesley De Winter, obviously very well versed around the circuit. A Belgium himself, as we have right on board now with Sebastian Handler from Griffix Engineering. Down there in that 9th spot. that is going to be one hotly contested area of the circuit, the top 10, because they are the last point scoring positions of this championship. Top 10 are the only people that will be scoring points throughout the championship, as we ride aboard now with Felix de Jong from felixdicit.com. Obviously his driver website there. So guys, if you want to go see more about Felix de Jong, you're welcome to go have a look at that. But here we are, heading up to the start of round 3 of the Super Trofeo mini series. You'll see them all pan out now into double file. I have explained before that these drivers do have a indication on their screen of where they need to be and what pace they need to run to control the rest of the field, as they will start bunching up now. So if we do see the second place man edge forward slightly, it will be because he's running on the edge of his box, so there will be no penalty for that unless he is outside of his box. Penalty being a drive through now as they slow down to 80 k's an hour, sorry, 70 k's an hour. For the start of this race, there is quite a bit of a gap from Boardman there. He's given quite a bit of space, which is quite interesting. I mean, if we are further back in the field, we can see cars almost on each other's bumpers. So a little bit of shuffling and changing as the lights go green now. Lucas the Cruiser has got a good run into turn 1. Felix de Jong going to try going around the outside. That's going to be edgy as we see a lot of movement behind them. Cars all over the place. One running wide there into the gravel. On board now with Andy Boardman. He's dropped his way all the way down to 7th place. So not a great start for Boardman. Down in 8th now. He's moved his way back up to 7th. But this long sweeping right hand. Sorry. No. My graphics are not matching what is going on screen as we are on board with Broiner. Boardman, sorry, still up in the top 3 there, just behind Felix de Jong and Lucas Cruiser, as we see this gaggle of Super Trofeo cars run down the back straight here into the first tight chicane. If we're going to see a mess, this is where we're going to see it. But they seem all neat and tidy now as they head through here. A lot of curb jumping. But contact there at the back, as I called it. 1, 2, 3, 4 drivers ending up in that mess. But the biggest loser in that, Chad Smith, dropping all the way down to 23rd place. It's going to be interesting to see where De Winter is, though. We know he's got the pace to run in the front. He was the quickest driver in qualifying. As we ride on board now with Vincenzo Sorais. He is in 7th place at the moment, sporting a new livery for this event. Looking very, very pretty. The black, red, and white of his car. He's in quite a battle on his own. But it's up to Andy Boardman now to hang with these two. Felix de Jong has gotten past the Cruiser. The Cruiser looking for a way down the inside here. He doesn't have enough space, though. Oh, almost running into the back there of Felix de Jong. So these two are running nose to tail at the moment, as there's more moving and more shuffling behind us between Killian and Cormac. It looks like Killian and Cormac going hammer and tongs at each other, as we see Muscat joining the party as well. So Cormac coming to the outside, cutting the nose off Muscat as well as they head through the sweep. Not an easy place to pass, but he's looking for the inside line now into the right-hander. Has he got the move done? No, he's only just able to defend the attack from Muscat as well. So very, very interesting racing over the three of them, nose to tail. Muscat riding the bumper now of Corbin. Corbin obviously losing a big run. Sorry, Cormac losing a big run after trying to get past Killian there. So he's lost a lot of pace, and that's just opened the door for Muscat to have a look at him, as we see plenty drivers behind them running wide. Back to the battle at the front though. Sorry, we're staying with this battle now for the top 5. We see Cormac make a massive mistake, jumping way too much curve there, and he just seems to be losing time on Killian in front. So Killian definitely got the pace here to run in that fourth spot, maybe even the pace to run back onto the front 3 here as we head through that quite technical left-right flick, with some right-left flick, some call it a chicane. To me, it's got a corner directly after it, so not much of a chicane to me, as we see Muscat just make a mistake and lose a bit of time on 5th place Cormac there from Cormac GP into the hairpin. Now we see Killian run slightly wide, so Cormac definitely still applying pressure from that distance. Interestingly, Andy Boardman able to hang with Koiza at the moment, so he's doing very, very well to stay in that 3rd place and right on the back of Lucas Koiza. Felix de Jong leading this race out now with only a 0.4 margin. Andy Boardman only 0.3 behind them. So as we drop into the night sky, you see the lights start coming on. The lights are dimming around the circuit. This is a half an hour race, so I expect us to run into darkness as we see their lights switch on now. So maybe we'll be able to see good pace throughout the day without any sort of tire degradation. Now P11, this looks interesting at the moment. It's Moritz Densham looking for his way through and into the top 10. This is the final points scoring position. The way just in front of him in 10th. Pride has managed to move himself up from his 11th place starting 10th place starting position into 9th, hoping to get away from this chasing pack. all of these guys in this chasing back, obviously hungry to get their mitts on that final point scoring position. Currently held by the way, as we're still on board now with Maritz Densham, a little long gaggle of cars involved in this. Through the long sweeping right-hander, hard onto the brakes into the chicane. Take a lot of curb through both just to try and get the car to change direction before you have to go through this right-hander. And the right-hander very tricky. You never know when to get on the power. But Dalhausen doing a great job throughout there. Keeping his car nice and neat and tidy. But doesn't seem to be catching anybody there at the moment as we're on board now with Boardman. Hanging in there for dear life with these two. We know that both the Cruiser and De Jong, very, very quick here. They seem quite safe in their first and second place in the championship. As third place man, Choquet seems to be quite lonely down there in the 8th place. We see them moving and shaking down the straight to break the toe. But Andy Bullman doing well to stay in here, 131.8. So, oh, big mistake from the Cruiser. Lucas Kreuzer has lost it going out of turn 1, almost making contact with Boardman again on the way exit. So just a little bit of frustration because of that mistake. He tries to stick it back down the inside of Boardman, and that cost him another space. And allows Felix de Jong just to stretch his legs and run away there with the lead. So a big mistake there from Lucas. He was doing quite well there in second place, ran just slightly too much curb and has dropped himself down into 4th place and allowed both Killian and Boardman to move themselves up each a place into 2nd and 3rd. So Lucas Kreuzer making a massive error there. We go back now to a P8. Tim Choquet, 3rd in the championship, makes a huge mistake over the curb. Had to lift. Lost himself 1 place. Will he lose a 2nd? The Squadron G-Force driver going from 8th on the grid now down to 10th. Trying to extend on the outside of the chicane and maintain at least his 9th place, but he's lost it. He's down to 10th. So Choquet, I did mention him, maybe a little commentator's curse. I did say he was pretty lonely there in 8th place, but it looks like party on. A whole gaggle of people have knocked at his front door and joining his party now. So unfortunately, he's dropped himself down to 10th place with that mistake. Let's see if he's got the pace to move his way back up now as we're on board now with Killian. The hard charging Kreuzer behind him. Lights are blazing. Unfortunately, he shouldn't be there really, to be honest, running a decent 2nd place, but made a huge mistake coming out of turn 1. Heads down the inside now, big lunge down the inside. Killian knows he's there, so turns in just slightly later. And the Kreuzer, obviously clearly frustrated from his mistake, taking all sorts of pot shots and dives at the drivers in front and just not making them stick at the moment. I wonder if that damage, or that contact with Boardman damaged the aero on that car and just lost him a bit of top end. And he's now unable to work his way up the field as we have a look on board now with Tim Choquet. Something's obviously happened though because Pride has pulled a massive gap on this group. So Choquet and I'm assuming Roy in front of him had a bit of a tussle for that 9th, 10th place. But Choquet now in the danger of not scoring any points this race and harming his current 3rd place in the championship. You see the footwork there from Choquet on and off the pedal, just trying to modulate the brake pressure. But he doesn't seem to have the pace at the moment. So qualifying pace wasn't too great, but it seems his race pace is even worse. Whole gaggle kind of behind him there. Felix de Jong, we're not going to see much of him this race. He's all out there on his own. A good 3.6 seconds ahead of Andy Boardman. It looked like we were going to have an interesting race between himself and the Cruiser. But unfortunately, Lucas Kreuzer making a massive error out of turn 1. And he doesn't seem to be able to just blow past these two. So these cars are very evenly matched. So it is difficult to pass in this series. And I think the fastest and easiest way to do it would be a mistake from the other driver. But these are all season sim races. And I don't expect to see many mistakes from them. So it's going to be difficult for Cruiser to move his way up the field as we have a look back behind him at Corbett Ryan Meenan. He's been very quick throughout this week, this event, quick in free practice, quick in qualifying. So he's up in 5th place and hanging around at the back of... another mistake from Kreuzer. So Kreuzer obviously struggling a bit with the setup he's put on for the race. He's run wide again and brought Cormac right back into the hunt. Cormac just set his fastest lap of the race, 132 dead. So Cormac on a move. He's looking inside though, just too far away to get it done. Late in the break with Kreuzer. Oh, big jump over the curve for Kreuzer as we head back. Oh, big move here from Choquet. Choquet down the inside. The freight train is behind him. Is he going to hang on to that inside line? He does so very, very well, but he's going to compromise his exit. Run massive amounts of... contact behind. And that has unfortunately caused the handler to get punted and turned around. So that yo-yo effect we see when drivers get on the brakes, or lose a bit of pace, and especially in a group like this, someone's going to get tagged, as we see JK under massive pressure from Dunhausen. We know Dunhausen was fast in qualifying, so we know he's got the pace to get past. And he is all over the back of JK as they head into the hairpin. He's going to go around to the outside, look for the run down. He can't quite get the cutback down. JK was wise to have actually slowed the car down on the apex to stop the cutback. So great defensive driving here from JK. But it's Moritz Dunhausen looking for a way past. We see them moving and weaving down the straight just to break that Toro. But JK clearly battling with the handling of his car as he compromises extra gain onto the main straight. This is going to give Moritz a good run and a good slip. Slip is quite drastic in these cars as we see him pull right onto the back of JK. He's going to have a big lunge down the inside, but he's definitely not close enough. That's going to bring him into the clutches of the driver behind. Driver behind being Brauner. Brauner definitely having a look now as he goes deep round the outside into turn 2. Is he able to make a stick? The next corner is a right hand. I don't see that happening for him. And he might even move from 11th down to 12th. Oh, nice clean racing from all these drivers here, giving each other nice bits of room there, giving each other a lot of racing room. So nice clean racing from everybody here. As another move, just have a look down the inside. Thinks better of it. As we head through the chicane now, Tim JK managed to hold off this battle. As we go back towards Boardman now on the rear wing of Boardman. Koiza now receiving himself a 5-second penalty for obviously track limitations. So he's not doing his... Oh! He's just had another big collision. So Koiza dropped himself way down the field there. So 5 seconds for a collision, then causes another collision, and ends his hopes of scoring any points here as he drops down into 8th place. If he can't get himself more than 5 seconds ahead of JK, he's going to be in trouble of not scoring any points and basically handing the championship lead over the previous field. Oh, another big off there. Killian Cormac, who was lying in 5th place, was well up the field. And now a massive mistake for him through the chicane, dropping himself down to the 9th place on the grid. So what was looking very dire for JK and his championship hopes is looking a lot better as Cormac makes that massive mistake, drops himself down into 9th and way out of contention here with the front brakes. The battle between JK and... Unfortunately, my feed is back. Sorry, I just lost my feed there for a second. So this is the position for points. And it's Tim JK versus Dunhausen for that final point scoring position of 10th place. The 88 of JK versus the 64 of Dunhausen. Doing battle here at the Belgian circuit of Zolder. JK now as he heads through the long left sweep into the final, well, not the final, the second to the last chicane on the circuit. It is a rather difficult circuit to do, but back now to Lucas Koiza here in P7. Unfortunately, my screen has disappeared on me. Sorry, I'm back. No, I'm not. I'm gone. Unfortunately, guys, I've lost my screen at the moment. Bit of a technical glitch. We will be back shortly with live action. Well, you guys are seeing it live. I'm unfortunately not seeing anything at the moment. So, but great battle start to Koiza. Unfortunately, hurting his championship hopes there with a mass amount of mistakes, collisions, and errors. Corbett not doing well for himself either. Just to give you a quick update on the points at the moment. In first place at the moment is Lucas Koiza with 21 points ahead of Felix de Jong with 17. Tim JK down with 15. We're way back at 9th, and we're just going to head back to our screen now. We are back and live. So Vincenzo Sarais getting past Sheldon Muscat for that 5th place. So Sarais doing very, very well and just staying out of trouble. As we see Lucas Koiza late in the brakes from 7th, trying to move his way back up. He's pressured a mistake from Pride. Pride making big moves to get himself up into 6th place and dropping himself way down to 8th. Sorry, make that 9th as Cormac goes past him as well. So Cody Pride still hasn't quite figured out how this car works, but I'm sure he'll get it right as we head into the final round at Zandvoort. So Cody Pride making an error there, dropping himself from 6th to 9th. So that moves Kreuzer up into 6th place, but he does have that 5-second penalty, which, judging by my quick calculations, will drop him down to 11th or 12th and out of point scoring position. So Cody Pride, massive mistake from him, down into 9th place. Hungry to move his way back up, but also in front of him is Cormac, who did a very similar thing and dropped himself from 4th or 5th place on the grid as well. So mistakes are plenty from everybody here. As we have a look here at Handler from P12. Handler, unfortunately, involved in that contact in the dice for the final point scoring position. But all over the back of him is Darling. And what's interesting to me is that De Winter hasn't made any progress, and in fact isn't as fast as I thought he would be after his amazing qualifying time of a 1 minute 30.9. Looking back now from Sebastian Handler, he has managed to get away from the chasing Darling, and De Winter just behind him. Where's De Winter? Was our quickest in qualifying and is currently the slowest on track, so something funny going on there. I don't know whether the setup was wrong or whatever happened, but very strange to see that as we look at Errol Verwey from CF Racing in 7th place, but the battle is raging between himself and Cormac. Cormac obviously eager to get himself back up the grid after that error he made. Verwey was just inside the top 10, fighting for the vital points haul, and is now finding himself fighting for a top 6 finish. So great racing from Verwey. And as we've just gone past a halfway distance now, Verwey through the chicane, looking for a way past on the hard charging Cruiser. We know Cruiser is fast, qualifies pole very often, second pole in this race as well. But unfortunately making a mistake trying to chase down the hard charging Felix de Jong and stay ahead of Andy Boardman. Two drivers we haven't spoken much about is de Jong and Boardman. Nice, clean, crisp racing from Boardman, Killian, and de Jong. All on his own here is de Jong. 131.3. He is consistently. Oh, well, his last lap was 132.5. So obviously just backing up the pace. He does have quite a bit of gap and no need to charge. But that the person who does need to charge at the moment is Boardman. Killian is within 1.2 seconds of him at the moment. So he's going to have to keep pushing. Otherwise, he's going to have himself in a fight as we go back to the fight for 8th place. It's Cormac. And in front of him, Verwey, we see that the cruiser, Lucas Kreuzer, has managed to pull himself a gap, but it's not going to be enough to stay ahead of these drivers, because remember, he does have a 5-second penalty. So he needs to build himself a 5-second gap or a 5-second cushion to the driver behind to maintain the position he is in. We have a look now at a truly Italian name, the Sheriff Trulli from Pray and Spray. He's down in 15th place now, battling for 14th with Busnick. Busnick we saw a lot of in the previous two rounds. We haven't seen a lot of him in this race, but we did see a lot of him in the previous 2 rounds. And he seems to be fighting with the hard-charging Sheriff Trulli, and behind him, Pierce. So a lot of battles throughout this field, and we can expect that in the one-man class. Every single one of these drivers in a Lamboghini Super Trofeo. And wow, gaggle of cars all over the place. Now remember guys, this is almost 17 minutes into the race, and you can still see the battles raging throughout the field. So nice to see that. Nice to see good, clean racing throughout the field. And for the length of the race, on board now with Busnick through the back wing, a beautiful shot of what's going on. He's currently 133.3. So the pace of the race has dropped down. Leaders we saw doing 132.5. So only a second off the pace now, down in 14th place. And he seems to have stretched his legs a bit and given just a little bit of a bye-bye to Mr. Trulli behind him. Trulli, though, under big pressure, though, from Pierce. Pierce down the inside now into the chicane. They're late on the brakes. This is a difficult place to overtake. You can go quite wrong, but Nathan Pierce making it look easy from Ned Jack Racing. Sorry, Red Hazak? Red Hazak Racing. Interesting name. Nathan Pierce up into 15th. He gets the move done on Trulli. Quite easily, actually. I don't like Trulli gave him just too much room there. But nice, good, clean racing. And Trulli lives to fight another day and hopefully get that 15th place back from the hard-charging Pierce. But Pierce has got his head down, looking to get back onto the back of Busnick. Through the hip, and they go. Trulli much later on the brakes there than Nathan Pierce in front of him, but unable to get a good run. Looking back now at the battle we were watching before, which was Verwey and Cormac. Unfortunately, they seem to have spaced each other out quite a bit, so not much of a battle going on here between the three of them. But they are definitely still charging hard. Interesting to see, Kreuzer has definitely put the hammer down and opened the gap. He is well aware of that 5-second penalty and knows he's only got 10 minutes to build another 3-second gap. We go back now to the other of the Side Max Motorworks drivers, the teammate of Cruiser with De Winter from GDL. De Winter, we saw him doing 130s in qualifying. He's now down to 135s. So something very strange going on there with Wesley De Winter's car. Able to do 130s in qualifying and cannot better a 135. Very, very strange. But as we ride on board with him now, we can see he was up in 20th place behind in front of Darling. He's now behind him. Down in 21st place and lapping well off the pace. Those behind him were in definite incidents throughout the race. We're back on board with Chev Trudy, right behind that of Nicholas Pierce. So this battle continues to rage on. Oh, big mistake there from Pierce. That's going to allow Trudy to run into the right-hander. Is he going to hug the curb, keep it on the inside? Yes, he is. Great move from Trudy, but thinks better of it because he's unsure in front of him. If the driver in front of him, Nicholas Pierce, has seen him there. So very clean, smooth driving from Trudy. That was definitely an opportunity. I will be honest, I would have taken it, and I'll probably be in the wall by now. So clever driving there from Trudy. Not to get too excited and stick his nose where it doesn't belong. And they both live on to fight another day. Looking back at Chad Smith from Happy Wired. Some very, very interesting team names. In the 222, just in 18th place at the moment, having a little bit of a fight with Kenny Rowland. Rowland, we saw very high up the field, drive on the right-hand side there, so a mistake from someone. That looked like Tricay's car. That looks like Tricay. So Tricay dropped himself down to 18th place now with a massive error. So either contact with him, he was fending off that 10th place quite hard, or 8th place quite hard, I think he was down at 10th. Fending off 10th place quite hard, and unfortunately, massive error from him, dropping way down to 18th place. So the Squadron G-Force driver was third in the championship and will not be scoring any points now. So it'll be interesting to see what that does for the championship points in terms of who will move up into third place. Currently, though, it is De Jong leading this race from Boardman with Killian in third, so Rice in fourth, and Muscat in fifth. But the Cruiser, the man we thought we'd be battling for the win, is all the way down in sixth place as we have a look now at the battle for P4. So Cruiser might be able to make a few spots here if these three start tripping over each other. But it is Sarais, Muscat, and sorry, I lied to you. Yes, Sarais, Muscat, and Kreuzer in this battle now. So Kreuzer managed to get onto the back of these two quite quickly, so I don't know if they've been battling for quite a while. But we saw Muscat was a little bit higher up. He made a bit of a mistake. He lost 2 places, able to fight his way back up into fifth. So a lot of moving and shaking happening throughout this grid. The number 1 car of Vincenzo Sarais in the red, black, and white, looking very sloppy out there. These two lapping just under a second slower than that of Lucas Kreuzer. So Lucas Kreuzer definitely got the pace to get past, but does he have the pace to build a 5-second gap in just 7 minutes? So if he can get past here, he still needs to get past and build another 5 seconds. So I can imagine his helmet. He's hoping for these two to trip over each other as they head side by side now into the chicane. Oh, moving over very late there from Sarais, and that has hampered the exit of Muscat. So Kreuzer going to be looking for a way past Muscat now. He's going to move over to the right hand side of the circuit for the inside of the chicane, but Muscat seems to have got that handled. He did cover it quite early, so he was able to hold off the attentions of Lucas Kreuzer. But we know that Lucas Kreuzer is a second faster than these two cars in front of him, so he's definitely got the pace. But whether he has the pace and can get past is a complete another story. Now, if he can run a second faster than them continuously or consistently for at least 6 minutes, he'll be able to pull that 5-second gap he needs because of the 5-second penalty. But he needs to get past very, very quickly to make that happen. Only 6 minutes left to go in this race as we sit on board now with Lucas Kreuzer. I always call him the Cruiser because he cruised to 2 easy victories in the first 2 rounds, but he doesn't seem to be having it all his own way today. Best time is a 131.4. His last time stuck behind these two, a 132.8. So he is losing massive amounts of time. Oh! I just saw a car disappear into the distance. It looked like that of Who was that? Muscat, unfortunately, just exiting stage left off the circuit. So Muscat, unfortunately, that is a disconnect for Muscat. So he's no longer in the race for us. A bit of good luck for Kreuzer. He's needed it this weekend, or sorry, this race, as we're right on board now with Cormac in 7th place. Still fighting with Verway, and just behind him Pride. So Pride moving his way up from the 11th place starting position up into 8th, doing very well. But unfortunately, Cormac GP, he must be kicking himself for that error he made earlier on in the race, dropping. Oh, mistake there from Pride. He's managed to keep it on the circuit. So we're heading into that point of the race where the tires start letting themselves go, and it starts to get a hell of a lot harder to keep these cars on the circuit. So Cody Pride there down in 8th place. Definitely one of the most striking liveries of any of the cars out there. Loving the baby blue and white. But how does the car work? I love that team name. Definitely one of the best team names out there. But he seems to have figured it out. He seems to have figured out how this car works as he sits in 8th place now, scoring himself some valuable championship points. I will have a look at the championship after this this race, to see what the moving and shakings are like. But unfortunately, we have lost Muscat, and we have lost a Triquet down to 15th place from a point scoring position. So what's turned out to be a disastrous race for him has gotten even worse, and unfortunately well out of point scoring contention. From 3rd place on the grid, or 3rd place in the championship, he's going to be dropping well down, with 10 drivers in front of him scoring points and him not. Cormac getting a lot closer to the Verway as we head through the first sector of the lap. It's going to be difficult to get past in these cars at the moment because of the tire wear, and it looks like Kreuzer has gotten past Sorais up into 4th place. But 7 seconds off the top 3, and only a second ahead of Sorais. So he's going to have to, he's definitely going to have to put the hammer down to maintain a top 5 position because of that penalty of 5 seconds, which was given to him for contact, I'm being told, on the circuit. So a slap on the wrist for some dirty driving has given him a 5-second penalty, and could push him outside the top 5. On board now with Chad Smith. He is in the battle. He is in a serious battle now with Triquet. Down inside Triquet goes. He's unable to make the move stick, and has to use a lot of curve to avoid contact. And that is on Smith. So having to take a lot of curve to avoid contact with Smith. So what just seems to be like a disastrous race for him. It goes from bad to worse every time Triquet tries to get past the driver, unfortunately. And sorry, I lied to you. That wasn't Smith. It was Roland he's trying to get past. Roland, someone we've seen up in the front as well. We've actually seen Roland and Triquet go hammer and tongs at it before. And here they go again. Both of them picking the well-renowned British-American green on their cars. Tim Triquet from Squadra G-Force late on the brakes, almost into the back of Roland there through the chicane. But he has closed the gap to make a move into turn 1. Roland taking too much curve and unable to get on the power, so he has hampered his run down into turn 1. He does block it quite effectively. Triquet looking to go the long way around. Oh, Roland runs slightly wide, but it will give him the inside, cover the inside for him into the next corner, making Triquet go the long way around, but Triquet is able to do it with ease with that error from Roland, and Roland unable to get on the power there and get a good drive out of the corner. So that has allowed Triquet past. Not only that, it's allowed Breuner into the fight for 15th place. Breuner, someone we also saw wall up the field earlier on in the race, so obviously a mistake from him as well. These are the gents that were battling for the top 10, and they're now battling for the top 15th spot. So a lot of movement throughout the field, a lot of drivers falling well behind where they should be. As Triquet, big jump over the curb, big sparks there, spectacular to see. But Tim Triquet not getting away from Roland at the moment. Roland hungry to get that position back after Triquet made that movement into turn 2. It was made easier for him by the mistake from Roland. But it does seem like now through this section he is able to open up a gap and comfortably get onto the chase to get onto the back of Smith. He's got only just over a minute, or just under 2 minutes to go to catch Smith, Trulli, Pierce, and Denhausen to score points and save any sort of championship run he has at the moment. But looking at the gaps throughout the field, I don't see any of that possible, bar any mistakes. But this is motorsport; anything can happen, and especially with these cars and the way their tires degrade, it is definitely something that can happen quite easily. So Tim Triquet now in the car 88. We move back to Christian Breuner in 16th place. He is sitting at 132.8. His last lap at 134. So he does have the lap times to run with actually the front pack, considering De Jong was only doing 132.5 at one stage. So he does have pace in this car, but as we said before, these tires go off very quickly and very badly as we head into this right-hand sweep. He runs a bit deep and a little bit wide, and that's not going to help his drive, especially if you run onto the Kittelitz on the outside there towards the chicane. So what could have turned into a good move down the inside has now turned into a defensive drive down the inside. Oh, to see those sparks flying. Gorgeous, gorgeous view from inside this car. So we spared no expense in the production. Made sure every single one of these cars had on-board cameras. And giving you the best shots we can. But Christian Bruyne struggling at the moment. Oh, big mistake there from Roland. And big mistake from the driver behind, whoever that was. I think that was Handler. I wonder if Handler actually made a position when doing that. So Roland making massive error through the chicane. Definitely driving, overdriving to catch on the back of Chicane. But we were right on board now with Kevin Roland. He seems to have gotten away with that mistake. To me, that looked like all four wheels over the curb. So definitely a time gain problem there. But that is up to the game itself. So no penalty given to him there. But behind him, drivers all over the place as well. As we ride on board with the man we haven't spoken a lot about this race, and it's Felix de Jong, the Dutch Lion, while out there on his own, having a little picnic by himself, slowly driving himself around for his final lap of the race to take I think his first win in the series and a bonus point for fastest lap. So his 17 points now becomes 27 plus 1. So 28 points, big haul for Felix de Jong, especially over that of Kreuzer, who won't finish inside. It doesn't look like the top 6 heading to the final chicane now. It'll be Felix de Jong to head over the line and take what is his maiden victory in the series. Felix de Jong, car number 92, takes the win here at Zolder in round 3 as we head back to P5 now. This is the battle we've been watching all the way through. It is Sir Rice, Verwey, and Cormac, but it looks like Sir Rice is going to live on to finish in 5th place ahead of Verwey, Cormac, and Pride. Rounding out the top 10, though, will be the 2 Dunhausen brothers. It will be Maritza and Marius taking those last 2 points hauls as we have a look back at Nathan Pierce, just 1 point behind, 1 place away from a point scoring position. Still fighting hammer and tongs with Trudy, 2 of them going at it the entire length of the race. A full half-an-hour battle between the 2 of them. I'd love to know what's underneath that helmet as we look at Trudy flashing his lights all over the back, just to say, "Shot my mate, great race." We have a look now. So Gold Team Racing's Marius Downhausen with the final point of the race, and Moritz Downhausen, his brother, finishing in 9th, scoring 2 points. So the last points of the race will go to the 2 brothers as they park up behind each other and flash each other, just letting each other know they've had a good race together. So some interesting racing throughout the field, some interesting driver tactics for a lot of the drivers, and some mixing up and matching up in the championship. Kreuzer's eventually finished 7th place in 7th with that 5-second penalty, so that's not going to be good for his points haul. I think only taking home 4 points there in 7th place versus De Jong's 11. So that's going to make a big change in the championship, and in fact give De Jong the championship lead going into the final round. All right, guys, so just go through our final result there. It is De Jong, Boardman ahead of Killian Ryan Meenan. So Rice in 4th, Verwey in 5th, Ryan Meenan in 6th, Kreuzer in 7th. Pride having a great race there, up from 11th into 8th. Dunhausen in 9th, ahead of Moritz in 10th. That rounds out our top 10. Guys, we'll be right back with you shortly for more race action from Zandvoort and the final round of this Super Trofeo mini championship brought to you by SimGrid. Come back to the final round of the Super Trofeo Mini Championship. Currently, we are on board or looking at Felix de Jong on his way out of his outlap around the very, very technical and very, very difficult Zandvoort circuit. Qualifying is going to be hellishly important around this circuit, so we need to see if you need to get out there, get a clear lap, and Felix de Jong doing well to keep himself out in the front with no traffic in front of him. His only difficulty is going to be who comes out of the pits in front of him as he starts his flying lap. We're right on board now on the bottom view with him. You can actually have a look at this lap as he heads into the right-hander. This is a very tricky, very bumpy part of the circuit. Then a corner that runs away from you is this right-hander here. It looks like you can go in a lot faster, but you can't because it tightens up quite badly as we head into the hairpin now. The left-hander onto a short little straight that'll take us into quite a tight little chicane with very little room to make any errors. You can see around the circuit it is surrounded by Armco and it's not very far away from you, so you need to be extra careful to not run off the circuit or run a wheel wide, which is a difficult thing to do. We have seen in the past in these Super Trofeo cars, they are difficult to handle, especially towards the end of the race as the tires start to degrade and the temperatures start to rise. We are late in the afternoon here at big slide as he comes out onto the sweep. That will hurt his run down the main straight and potentially hurt his first flyer of this 10-minute qualifying session. Behind him is Pride, now sporting a lime green livery from his baby blue and white that he was using at the previous race. Into the hairpin now. Sorry, not that soft. Pride is currently second on the grid. So behind him is one of the Ryan Meenan brothers, if I recall correctly, in the lime green car, heading into the infamous banked left-hander. Concrete wall right there on your right-hand side. Felix de Jong heading almost directly to it just so you can get the drive out of this and through this flat-out right-hander, flat-out left-hand sweep, and then a short right-hander that's also flat, and then dab on the brakes into the sweep here. Now the sweep dips away from you. You can see on the outside how they've had to extend the circuit for Formula 1 use. Unfortunately, that may not happen this year, but the circuit has been updated for Formula 1 use, so runoff areas are slightly wider in certain areas, but the rest of it is very much like a street circuit. Here is that tricky right-hander I spoke about earlier. Second gear corner up to third, then down to second again for this hairpin. The drive, all important here to take you down to the chicane. It is a short run, but drive out of any tight corner is very important. But this little, you can see Felix de Jong straightening it out there to get the run. But this little chicane is what's tricky. You can't take too much curve because it unsettles the car, but you need to take enough to get it to change direction. So very, very tricky part of the circuit and very easy to lose a lot of time there. But we see he is quite neat and tidy now into the right-hand sweep. This is where he needs to get on the power early, not run too wide because that is gravel, not curb, and not affect his run through the flatter right-hander onto the main straight to complete this lap. And Felix de Jong putting together a decent banker lap, a decent banker flyer, which I think should put him on pole for the remainder of the session. I'm unable to see any lap times at the moment as we see Killian, who was chasing him, move himself into second place. Only 0.5 of a second off that of Felix de Jong. We know Felix de Jong very, very quick around most circuits, and I expect him to be very quick around his home track in the Netherlands. The Dutchman on his home track is currently on pole, 0.5 ahead of that in second. Andy Boardman up into third now. So Andy going to be moving himself up the championship quite nicely with two very good results if he can carry on in this position in qualifying. But as we know, anything can happen in a race. But Lucas Kreuzer comes across to set his first flyer, and that moves him straight up into second place. So the two top contenders we saw in the first two rounds and the two top contenders we saw in qualifying at Zolder were Felix de Jong and Kreuzer, currently swapped around at the moment in their positions. We did see Kreuzer on top of de Jong previously, but we are back on board now with Chad Smith from Happy Wired Racing Team, the 222 in his grey and baby blue livery, heading through to set what is his second fly lap. His first fly lap, 2.1 seconds off pace, so he'll be hoping to find a little bit more pace around the circuit. This track is notoriously difficult to drive, and even worse so to drive fast, especially with very little room to make errors. Behind him at the moment is that infamous black, white, and red of Sorais from in car number 1 there. He was well up into the top 5 in the last race. He's currently 5th at the moment, 0.9 off the pace, and chasing down, maybe using him as a bit of a rabbit, is Saras, hoping to move himself into the top 3 here in qualifying. He's just dropped down to 6th. Beware able to get himself up into 5th. Pride able to get himself into 5th. Alive dropped down to 6th. Saras comes across the line to set his second flyer of this qualifying session, moving himself into P3, 139.5, 0.3 of a second, sorry, 0.4 of a second off the pace at the moment. Killian 0.5 off as well, 0.5, almost 0.6 off at the moment. And again, he's with Andy Boardman. So a dice we saw throughout the race, last race, possibly a dice we'll be seeing again. Lucas Kreuzer obviously happy with his 139.1. And hey, excuse me. My apologies. And heading back to the pits as we're on board with Geneva. We saw a lot of them in round 1 and round 2. I haven't seen a lot of them in the previous 2 rounds. Currently down in 18th place from Goob Purple Bulls. What a name. What a team name that is. So unfortunately, Geneva it was in the pits most of the last race. It might have been those Purple Bulls that were getting in his way for the majority of the race. And unfortunately, had to spend most of it in the pits. On board now with Vincenzo Rice. Previous time 139.3, hoping to better that. He has gotten past the 222 of Smith. Smith doing quite well up in 14th place. He is a strong mid-pack runner, so he's doing quite well in that 14th place at the moment. So we're still on board now with we've gone to Christian Brauner, whose team name I will not attempt. My German isn't as good as it should be, considering I can speak Afrikaans. But Mulkenbacher. I had to put an accent on. I don't know why I had to do that, but that was something I had to do. So Rice moving himself up into P2 with that second flying lap, going 0.3 of a second faster, 139 dead. Making a mistake on the exit there. It'll be interesting to see if he can go even better than that and knock Felix de Jong off his pedestal. But we see Lucas Kreuzer heading out for another flat-out lap, going past his contender there, Felix de Jong. Kreuzer only 222 off the pace, but it is Sheriff Truly trying to go slightly quicker. He's down in 12th place at the moment, so he needs to get himself up into the top 10. He's not far off it. 1.1 off the pace, but only 0.3 off the top 10 qualifying position. We know the top 10 is vital in this mini championship because it is the only place that the last of the places that scores points. A little bit of understeer here through the right-hander. Let's see what he's doing now. He is up, but able to get past. So having a look now at the top 5 at the moment. First, Felix de Jong, 0.1 ahead of Sarais. He's a further 0.2 behind them is Kreuzer. A big gap though down to Boardman, but only 0.006 of a second between Pride and Boardman. So, and as well, Killian also within 0.1 of 4th. So the gaps are tiny around this circuit. I did say it was difficult to go faster around here. Clearly I was wrong because it looks like 10 of them are able to do it. But Kreuzer now in 3rd place, hoping to get himself further up the grid. He's only got to find 0.2. But as we go back down to the last point scoring points, because like I said to you, overtaking on the circuit is notoriously difficult. So qualifying is going to be hellishly important. Only 0.1 between 10th and 11th, and a further 0.2 from okay. Kreuzer currently 3/10 up on this lap. As we ride on board for the last section of this lap, this is a flat-out right-hander. So he should be able... Ooh, big understeer moment through there. Running slightly wide. Is that going to affect his final lap time? He is 0.3 up. Is he going to be doing another stonker? Sticking on pole position. 138.7. And goes exactly the distance ahead of de Jong that he was off de Jong. How is that for irony? So Kreuzer... de Jong has made the line just in time, so he'll be able to do one more lap of qualifying. A little bit of an oversteer moment coming out of there, so he's got to find 0.2 of a second to knock Kreuzer off his pedestal, knock Kreuzer away from that pole position. Kreuzer being a man that's stuck on a pole at almost every round. In fact, we've only had 3, and he's been on pole for all 3. So the qualifying magician, the Lucas Cruiser, he just cruises his way up onto pole all the time. He's currently sitting on pole now with qualifying over. This will be the last lap that Felix de Jong can stick in before this session ends, and it's going to be a very, very important lap. So no mistakes from him would be the order of the day, and he's still got to find himself 0.2 somewhere. Oh, he has ejected the lap. So Felix de Jong saw that he wasn't going to be up. He made an error somewhere. He saw that he was down on the lap and decided rather better just to abort lap and end up and take his second place on the grid. On board now with Chad Smith trying to move himself up from that 16th place. He does so 2 places up into 14th place from Happy Wide. So 140.3 moves him into 14th place. Killian was quite high up at one stage in qualifying, second place earlier on in quali. Down in 6th now, looking to end a final lap and move himself into the top 3, which is where he seemed quite comfortable in the last race. So it'll be interesting to see if he can do it again. Christian Borner currently 3/10 up in 7th place. If he does maintain those 3/10, we'll only move him up 1 place. But it'll be interesting to see if he can find any more throughout this sector of the lap. This is where a lot of time can be found and a lot of time can be lost. But he heads now into the second to last corner. Gets in the power nice and early. Not too much oversteer. A big mistake from the driver in front. Hopefully that doesn't distract him as he hits to his flat or right-hander. Nice and early on the apex. Nice little exit there. Didn't use too much curve or too much grass, as we've seen a lot of them do. Over the line and moves himself up to 6th place. So 1 place up for Bruyne. And that brings to a close our qualifying for the 4th and final round of this championship. So first again for Lucas Kreuzer, pole position specialist in pole ahead of Felix de Jong. Sorais up into 3rd. That's someone we haven't seen in the top 3. Boardman in 4th. Pride in 5th. So Pride coming on strong later on in the championship. Bruyne in 6th. Killian in 7th. Muscat in 8th. And all importantly, Chicay all the way down in 9th with Verret in 10th. So some of our championship contenders who were in the front after run 1 and 2 are going to be looking to just consolidate a top 6 championship finish at the moment after 2 very poor qualifyings. Excuse me. From their standards. So, sorry guys. After an hour of talking non-stop, my voice does tend to give out. So I am trying to maintain the excitement portray the excitement in my brain through my voice, but it seems to be struggling at the moment. We've only got a minute to go before we head on to the warm-up lap. But let's hopefully we can see the close racing we've seen throughout the series for the 4th and final round here at Zandvoort in the SimGrid Super Trofeo Mini Championship. Right, guys, they are about to start their warm-up lap for the 4th and final round of the SimGrid Super Trofeo Mini Series. Currently on board with Felix de Jong, 2nd place man, again, behind Lucas Kreuzer, who is once again on pole. So definitely showing that he is a bit of the pole meister, Lucas Kreuzer, often putting himself on pole. Interesting to see again, De Winter showed some scary pace in Zolder, but unable to qualify inside the top 20. So definitely something interesting went on there at Zolder to put himself on a 130.5. But he was pushed down to the back of the grid. So obviously something going on there, or something not quite happy for De Winter. But saying that, let's go back to the front 2. It's Lucas Kreuzer ahead of Felix de Jong and Sorais, doing well to put himself up into 3rd place, a place we haven't seen him before yet in the series. a very strong drive from him and the previous race in Zolder. Going into this round, though, this is the decider between these two. It will be Kreuzer and de Jong fighting for the championship. Felix de Jong on 28, Kreuzer on 25 after a disastrous round 3 at Zolder. So lucky for us, not so lucky for him. We had a bit of a disaster at Zolder, but it definitely brought the championship closer together, and we are now sitting at a title decider here at the final round. I wonder if the two of them can hear me now, and if they know that this is the title decider between the two of them. I'm definitely not one of the racing drivers that sits there and calculates points, but I wonder if these two maybe are. But to spoil the party is Sir Ice, just behind them in the car, in the number 1 Lamboghini Super Trofeo car. You see them weaving around just to warm up their tires. You do see them accelerate and brake quite hard. That is to warm up the brakes on these cars. Obviously, with the carbon ceramics, the temperature is simulated very well throughout the game. So it is important to keep temperature in those carbon ceramic brakes. And in fact, one of the settings you can change on these cars is the brake ducts to ensure that throughout the lap they stay warm enough to stop, but not too warm that they overheat. You'll see them go side by side now as they head through the final part of this lap, getting ready for the start. Car 91 there is Felix de Jong, currently leading our championship, but only 3 points ahead of that of Lucas Kreuzer. I'm sure I will be getting updates throughout the race of what the championship will look like depending on where they're finishing, and I'll be doing my own little quick calculations here as well, just to make sure we keep you up to date with what's going on and who will be possibly winning this championship or possibly losing it. They get ready, they bunch up now to get to the line. We watch the lights ahead of us. They are currently red. We are waiting for them to get the go-ahead. They're sitting at 70 k's an hour, ready to hit the hammer and put down all the horsepower these cars have got. They're on their way now, and it looks like Kreuzer has got a much better start than de Jong, but de Jong does have the inside for turn 1. Thinks better of it, though. It is a long race, half an hour. Oh, big touch and go going on there. It looks like Triquet is having more of a disaster as he's forced out to the outside, dropping way down the field. Such a gaggle of cars coming past him, he can't even rejoin. So Zolder is quite synonymous for first lap incidents, as we see Boardman moving his way up into 3rd place from 4th, and we are on board with Cormac. He was quite high up the rest. Now Moritz Dernassen down into 17th. We go back up to Felix de Jong in the front. Felix de Jong in 2nd place, under pressure though from Boardman. De Jong, if he stays where he is, will still be championship leader, but Boardman right on his tail, just getting on the power a little bit too early there and losing the back end. Muscat, we saw him big in the dice for the top 10 in the previous race. We see him flat out in the middle of it now as well. Driver down the inside though, that looks like Killian on Pride, running Pride wide, and that's allowed Muscat to go down the inside. Chad Smith going down the inside there as well of another driver. Well, Ryan Whitlock, unfortunately, we saw him all over the place previously. Having a good solid race down there in 18th or 14th place, sorry. Felix de Jong, that we ride on board with our current championship leader and our possible, if he stays where he is, championship winner. But it is a long race, 28 minutes still left to go. Cormac moving himself up into 10th place, so vital championship points for him as Bosnick makes a big mistake coming out of the tight left-hander. We go back to Sebastian Handler. He also was having a good race, then got tagged from behind and unfortunately turned around, and unfortunately ending his hopes of a top 10. A lot of drivers running wide. What a beautiful shot. Oh, big incidents in the background there. A lot of drivers taking each other out. Oh, collected. So many drivers. So Chad Smith, De Winter, one driver going into the pits. Chad Smith going to have to go into the pits. And we go back to Owen Winlock from Sidemax Motorworks, is obviously also involved in that incident. So big mess at the back there in the... Oh, that is so unfortunate for Tim Triquet. He was caught up. Sheriff Truly, we saw him fighting for a top 10 position in the last race. He is also in the pits with big damage. So a lot of top contenders taken out of the race there in that last corner incident. It looked to me like a driver just got turned around and unfortunately left in the middle of the circuit and not giving many drivers. Oh, that was almost an incident. That was almost an incident. Big defense though from Verwey. He goes deep down the inside again. He's all over the show trying to keep a hold of this place. I'm not sure if he's aware. It's only the second lap of a 30-minute race. Heading now into the left-hander. Cormac going to try and get the drive, but he's unable to do so. So loses a lot of time before the chicane. So this dice, I think, is going to continue throughout the race. It's quite unusual that a circuit that's so difficult to pass on creates such good racing. So we've got drivers all bunched up together. And saying that, though, I look back at 5th place, which is Christian Bronner, on the back of Sarais, chasing down Boardman. And there seems to be a big gap throughout the field between Lucas in the front and Felix de Jong. This is not a gap I expected to see after only 3 laps of racing. But behind them, Boardman going very defensive on Sarais. So it looks like the fighting continues throughout the field, and this is maybe why de Jong... Oh, contact between the two of them. That looked to me like Sarais just turned it in way too early, and Boardman just kept his car where it needed to be, and big contact between the two of them. So this circuit, very, very difficult to pass on, and really only turn 1 is the only real place to get it done as we look at Sarais outbraking himself into that sweep, and he is all over the show trying to get back onto the back of Boardman. We go back now to the battle for 10th place, the final point scoring position in the race, and it is currently held by Cormac Ryan Meenan from Cormac GP, and he is under massive pressure from Busnick. Busnick running wide as they head into the sweep. He's not going to be able to get himself back onto the apex from there. Plenty of marbles out there on the outside. The circuits are set, so there is a lot of grip on the track at the moment. So it comes with a lot of grip, comes with a lot of dirty on the outside of the line. So running wide. Whoa, mistake there. That looks like Muscat. Muscat's turned the car around in the center of the group. How everybody missed him is beyond me. So maybe a radar works for the car span on the circuit as well. So great maneuvering from all the drivers there, able to get around that stuck car of Muscat. We get back. Oh, Cody Pride as well involved in that. So Cody Pride, and it looked like to me Muscat involved in an incident. Yes, Cody Pride and Muscat down in 21st or 22nd. Pride down in 22nd, Muscat down in 21st. So obviously an incident between the two of them, and unfortunately dropped them way down the field. They're now there with Triquet. Triquet had quite a bit of damage to his car. There, as you can see, the nose of that car is broken. Took a punch to the face, and unfortunately the nose is broken. So his aero is going to be all over the show, and he's going to struggle to keep that car going in a straight line, or with any sort of pace in a straight line. We get back to a P4, that's a Vincenzo Sarais. He is under attack from a hard-charging Bräuner for that at 4th place, but it is allowing a bit of breathing room for Andy Boardman in that 3rd place position around this, like I said previously, difficult to pass Zandvoort circuit. We see as they head through this bank sweep, you can see all the runoff area added to the outside. That's been added for the Formula 1 GP. That was supposed to happen this year, but unfortunately, I don't think it will be happening as expected. We go back now to P8. There seems to be a bit of a train from 8th down to 10th. We do see 4 cars quite close together. But the major battle is for this final point scoring position between Cormac Ryan Meeson and Busnick. So, no. Is that possible? It's Handler in P9. Busnick's moved himself up to P8. So Whitlock down in 11th. So Busnick's moved himself up to P8 ahead of Cormac and Handler. So I wonder if the two of them maybe a bit of a clash. Sorry, I have been corrected. Cormac was P8 and he's dropped himself down. Oh, mistake for Busnick. Busnick moved himself up into P8. Made an error coming out of the sweep, out of the chicane. I did mention that in qualifying. That corner is quite difficult to get through without an error, and dropped himself way down to P14. So a mistake from Busnick. He was well up the field, well up into 8th place, and has now dropped himself down to 14th. So the infamous Zandvoort claims itself another victim. As we have a look behind him, though, it is Corbs behind him looking for a way past. He's going to dive down the inside into turn 1. Oh, leg move from Busnick. I wonder if he was looking for a pass on the driver in front or going for defensive. Interesting leg move from him, and unfortunately Corbs runs wide because of it, so unable to attack it again. But like I said previously, virtually impossible to pass on the circuit unless you're willing to make contact with the driver in front of you. But we have some very good stewards on board, and they'll be watching in the back room for any sort of ill driving from either any of these drivers, and penalties will be issued like we saw between Kreuzer and de Jong. Kreuzer out in the lead at the moment, a big gap to de Jong. De Jong doesn't need to beat him. Oh, Busnick almost down the inside there due to a mistake from Corbs in front, but unable to stick it and put his nose down the inside there to make that move happen. Definitely a battle raging on here that will probably see all the way through to the end of the race. The similar contenders we saw in the previous race. It is Boardman ahead of Saras and ahead of Broiner. Broiner unfortunately made a mistake as well. And just behind them, don't count him out, is Killian Ryan Meenan. We saw Killian well up the field at Zolder, and hopefully see him up the field again some more here in Zandvoort. But at the moment, it's Andy Boardman heading out Group B of this championship. The other two drivers, Felix de Jong and Kreuzer, we're used to seeing them in the front. But Boardman able just to hang on there, just like he did at Zolder. Just hanging in within touch of Kreuzer and de Jong, hoping to pick up the pieces should any mistakes happen, like they did at Zolder for Kreuzer. Kreuzer make huge areas throughout the race. As we go back to the battle between P9, it's Ryan Whitlock. When we last looked at him, he was battling for 10th place from Cormac. Cormac now up into 9th, and that's promoted Whitlock to, Cormac up into 8th, and that's promoted Whitlock up into 9th. Just behind him, though, is Handler in the last of the point-scoring positions around this tricky Zandvoort track. And he does have a bit of breathing room to one of the first of the Danhausen brothers. I think that is, I'll go back to my notes, I think that's Marius. Back in that 11th place, just ahead of Geneva, who unfortunately spent most of the last race in the pit lane, having a far better race of it at the moment up into 12th. But Ryan Whitlock just hanging on nicely to that 9th place. 2 points in the bag for him if he can finish there. And just behind him is Handler. Heading back now to a P11 with Danhausen from Mini Mad Racing Team. So racing team name change there for Moritz. Obviously a livery as well. So Moritz Danhausen changing his livery and his team name to Mini Mad Racing Team, just ahead of Geneva there, who we saw unfortunately in the lane. He is now having a much better race than he did 12th. Just behind him is the hard-charging Busnik. After his mistake, he's gotten past Corbs and up into 13th place and chasing hard to catch these two and get himself back into a point-scoring position, which he all by himself threw away earlier on in this race. So Busnik charging hard to catch these two, but just behind Danhausen is Geneva, and Slipstream is massive down this main straight. He does look like he's got the run on him. Whether he'll get it done, we have no idea. As we're on board now with Handler from Griffax Engineering. Handler just within touching distance of Whitlock, and just within touching distance of what would be 1 point, he can turn into 2. So very, very close together these two are running. You can see how just how tricky these cars are to drive. You can see how the nose moves around underneath the drivers. So these cars are very tail happy and are very tricky to keep on circuit. And when a circuit is this narrow, it is a rather difficult thing to do, and to keep them going on circuit, on tar, between these two white lines, and make them go fast is an art form in its own. That art form being shown off at the moment by Kreuzer. He is well off into the lead. 3.1 seconds ahead of Felix de Jong, who has pulled a gap of almost 3 seconds on that of Andy Boardman. Oh! Big mistake from de Jong, taking way too much curb on that exit of that chicane. How close is Boardman? Ooh, he only just managed to keep that second place ahead of Boardman. That would have done huge damage to his championship at the moment. Felix de Jong has no need to chase down Kreuzer. Kreuzer can't win the championship by beating him by 1 place, but he can definitely do it by beating him by 2. So Felix de Jong needs to just keep it neat and tidy, stay ahead of Andy, and keep this championship alive for himself, because at the moment he is struggling to do so by not staying on the circuit. Keep it tidy, keep it neat, and just stay ahead of Andy Boardman. You know, it's difficult to know you've got the pace. It's difficult to turn the pace you know you've got, and now you've got to do that and maintain pressure from the driver behind. So where he was would have been a quite neat and tidy space to stay for the remainder of this race, with only 17 minutes left to go. So we're almost at halfway distance, but the championship was almost thrown away there by Felix de Jong. Good catch there as he rode over the curb, but now he's under pressure from third place man Andy Boardman, and just behind him, like sharks in the water smelling chum, is Sir Rice. 15-second penalty for Cormac at the moment. I just see popped up on my screen. He's down in 8th place. So it obviously, for a collision, and quite a large one, he wasn't down. He wasn't in 8th place when we last looked at him. I think he was further down. So who are we? So who are we missing out of that group that was running there, who is no longer? Apparently, so truly, who's in the pit, who we saw involved in that last lap corner incident that took out pretty much 4 or 5 cars. Trichet was one of them, so truly was involved in that as well. So I think Cormac, given the responsibility for that massive shunt that happened coming out of the last corner onto the main straight on, I think, the second or third lap, as we go back to the fight between Sorais, Boardman, and De Jong. De Jong doing Boardman some favors and just towing him away from the fighting Sorais. Sorais deep onto the apex. He uses the early apex line. It does damage the exit though. As we catch, we on board with these three. Are they catching Cruiser or is that a back marker? Judging by my screen, that is a back marker, and I don't want to call him a back marker because he was previously third place in this championship. That's Tim Trichet, just ahead of Felix de Jong at the moment. So he is going to be a lap down shortly. That is definitely unfortunate for him. He was one of our championship contenders heading into these last 2 rounds. He was sitting in third place. Oh, big mistake from Sorais. Sorais running wide, grabbing that kitty litter on the outside, turning the car around and dropping himself down into 7th place. He rejoins the circuit in the racing line, but he's got enough space between himself and drivers behind him. I see Killian also with a 15-second penalty at the moment. Oh, another mistake from Sorais. Gets on the power way too early, turns the car around with dirty tires, and he's given it up. So frustration getting the middle of Sorais there, and he puts himself in the pit lane and gives up on possibly staying inside the top 10. So unfortunately for Sorais, you knew he was out the championship after his first 2 rounds, but unfortunately just giving up the ghost there. Something I don't like to see out of drivers, but unfortunately it is something that they do. Frustration does get the better of us. Something you can't do in the real world is quickly hit the escape button. As big moving and shaking going on here. De Jong, who was quite happily out in front in 2nd place, quite happily maintaining his championship, is now under massive pressure from Andy Boardman. As we have a look now on the inside, we'll see the inside, the car will just be filled, the inside view will just be filled with the rear end of Felix de Jong. Felix de Jong going well to defend. Doing a good job keeping Andy Boardman away from him. As we head to this amazing helicam. Guys, we spared no cost in making sure you get the camera angles you deserve. And we even have a helicopter in the sky. So Dave, our helicopter pilot, doing a great job there, giving us great helicam footage of Andy Boardman chasing down a 2nd place man, Felix de Jong. Now that move he tried to make and go around the outside and get on the power earlier seems to have backfired in his face, and Felix de Jong getting a decent gap on him at the moment and able to slowly eke that gap out and get back into the comfortable position he was before. But it looks like Andy Boardman just a little bit better through this last part of the lap and is able to get onto the back of Felix de Jong again. So you can see the two of them yo-yoing in themselves around the circuit. Andy Boardman definitely better through this last sector. And probably you'll see him on the brakes here into the chicane make massive gains on the car of Felix de Jong. So however Felix has set that car up, it's not happy through the tighter stuff of the circuit. Maybe he's just got that car set up for the faster parts, which do happen in the 1st and 2nd sector of this lap around the infamous Zandvoort circuit. This circuit, obviously, like I've mentioned many times before, adjusted quite drastically for the Grand Prix. That hasn't happened. We look back behind now at Marius Danhuizen in 14th place, just behind 13th place Lauren Corbs, as they head through the chicane now. This is the trickiest part of the lap for me. I'm not sure how these drivers. Well, as I say it, Danhuizen makes a massive mistake as heading out of the chicane, running just slightly wide. There's not another slow car. Doesn't Handler making a mistake from a top 10 finish, and again costing himself 4 or 5 places. Just behind him though is Pierce. We saw Pierce have a massive battle with Truly in the previous race. It does look like a little bit of damage on that car. So maybe some contact was made between himself and another driver, and unfortunately dropping himself down into 14th place. But we're out on board now with Nathan Pierce chasing down that of Handler. Oh, sneaky little dive, and there's no ways that was going to happen. Maybe just running wide onto the grass. I don't think that was a dive. So able to keep himself out of contact with Handler. This circuit is very tricky to follow on because you actually lose sight of the entire circuit when you're following close behind another driver. But out in front. We quickly had a glimpse of how far ahead Cruiser is on the rest of the field. Back on board though with Nathan Pierce. He is all over the back of, it looks like, the ailing car of Handler. The battle that B2s did just hearts it up. The man I mentioned before, Killian, don't cut him out of this. He's on his way and he's coming to join this party, guys. He's brought himself a 6-pack and he's here for the rest of the night. So don't cut him out just yet. But at the moment, the battle is between these three. Oh, whoa! Use some of the circuit and more. Why don't you there, Broiner? So Broiner up into the 4th place. I do say don't count Killian out from the battle, but remember he does have a 15-second penalty. We're still unsure of what that is for, but a 15-second penalty he has at the moment. Down in that 5th place. But we have a look now at Felix Young. I was mentioning the first part of the sector, his car does look very good, but he does seem to struggle a bit in the last part of the sector on the 2 cars that are chasing him at the moment. If nothing changes as we are now, Felix de Jong will stay championship winner by only 1 point. So if he falls 1 place down, that is it. It's a tie for the championship, and I'm sure we'll go down to a countdown for pole positions or fastest lap, which we know that Kreuzer has more of. So Felix de Jong needs to be careful not to lose this 2nd place to Andy Boardman, or he needs to set the fastest lap to give himself a bit of breathing room ahead. But the pace that the Cruiser is turning at the moment, I think it's going to be difficult to do that. We are on board now with Cormac. Just behind him is Whitlock. Whitlock only 0.2 behind him, definitely within spitting distance. Right now he's getting so close we can actually hold a piece of paper between the 2 of these cars as they head down towards one of the very few passing opportunities of this lap. The tight chicane to end off this 2nd sector as we head into the 3rd sector. This looks like Whitlock very, very close and very, very close. If he stays, runs just slightly wide and unfortunately loses all the drive that he had gained up, all the time he had made up on the driver in front to possibly make a move. Oh, mistake from driver in front. So that's gonna hamper the drive down the main straight. And we know the slipstream is massive. Another mistake. He's gone early defensive, but he is just driven around the outside of Whitlock. Into the pits goes Cormac. So Cormac giving it up and putting him in the pits, obviously having issues with his car. All he knows, with a 15-second penalty, he's not going to finish very far up the field, and it's going to be a struggle to keep himself within the top 10. So Cormac giving it up. Killian, however, not of the same mindset, staying out there. As we have a look now at Moritz de Nijssen in 8th place, fighting it off with Busnik. So Busnik moved himself back up into 9th after that error, dropping him outside of the top 10. So Busnik up into 9th, Geneva up into 10th. So a lot of these guys are gaining some awesome places, or gaining a lot of places from the mistakes of other drivers in front of them. The circuit is notorious for creating mistakes for drivers. This corner especially, as we see Busnik run slightly wide. We've seen a couple of cars facing the wrong direction on the exit here. So that corner is rather difficult to navigate. And in fact, it took Sir Rice out of the race earlier on, as we saw early on in the early part of the race. So, there's a mistake from Busnik. I need to stop talking about this man. Every time I talk about him, he turns his car around. I must apologize, sir. My sincere apologies. I'm not mentioning your name for the remainder of the series. With only 8 minutes left to go, I will make sure your name stays out of my mouth. Because unfortunately, every time I mention you, you either make a mistake or get taken out or make contact with another driver. So my commentator's curse is hanging around quite proud there as we go on board with Handler with some damage on his front end. Dropped down into 15th place. Another driver we saw contend the top 10 in the previous race. Threw it all away, and he's done it again in the 2nd race. So these cars are notoriously difficult to drive, and probably why the Lamborghini racing team use them to whittle out the drivers they use in their factory Lamborghini racing team in their GT ambitions. At the moment, Handler sitting there quite comfortably. I don't think he's going to be involved in many battles with that front end the way it is, but you never know. And obviously, when I say things, they seem to happen. So I'll try and say the opposite. On board now with Andy Boardman, just losing touch from Felix de Jong. Felix de Jong needs to be careful to stay where he is, whether he knows it or not. If he stays where he is, he becomes the SimGrid Super Trofeo Mini Cup or Mini Championship. So behind him, though, behind Boardman, though, is Broiner. But as I said it to you before, don't count out Killian, who has made a proper charge and caught onto the back of Broiner. So Killian could be moving himself up a position on track, but it's not going to do anything for his final finishing position. If anything, it might move him slightly away from drivers further down, because like you can see on the right hand side of his name there, it says plus 15s. So that stands for 15 seconds for a yet unknown contact made with another driver. And unfortunately, that penalty going to cost him dearly, as he's down the inside of Broiner. Broiner would be clever. So Broiner just would be clever to let that happen and let that go past, because he knows Killian is 15 seconds down. No point in getting involved in a race with him and slowing yourself down. He clearly has a pace around the front. I'm being told now that a Killian's penalty is for contact with Cody Price, who we saw facing the opposite direction at one stage. So that was obviously caused by Killian. Cody Price actually exiting his 8 laps down. So he's exited the race down in 21st place. Triquet 6 laps down in 20th. So a lot of drivers we're used to seeing inside the top 10 are unfortunately well down the field and well out of this race. We're on board now with, too scared to say his name. On board now with Busnik. He's moved himself back up into ninth place after making that error previously. So he's back up to where he was. And Marius Victor Geneva, well ahead. He's obviously just lost that ninth place to Busnik. But he's got more than enough breathing room between himself and 11th. So a quiet little race there for Geneva. Keeping himself nice and neat and tidy there. Staying out of trouble, staying out of fights, and staying on the circuit. Although every time I've said that about someone else, they've turned around. So please, Geneva, don't do it. I don't need that hex on me, man. I don't need it. But a good drive from him in 10th place in that from his Goop Purple Bulls. Obviously doing him well there and keeping him up in 10th place. So many interesting team names throughout this field. But great drive from the number 32 car there of Geneva as we go on board with Nathan Pierce deep in a battle here with Corbs and Wenlock. They head into the chicane. He's way too late in the brakes. How he got that car stopped and turned is beyond me. Just behind him is the teammate of current race leader, Lucas. Oh, I see both of them running off there. So, and running off again. Oh, so Pierce making a massive mistake with Wenlock behind him. Wenlock is the T-Mac, the Side Max Motorworks driver, also a commentator in his own right as well. Sorry, that was the other Side Max Motorworks driver, Louis. So I'm getting the two mixed up. But Owen up into 13th place after that mistake from Pierce. So this battle looked like it was on the hot plate. Seems to have been taken off the simmer for now. But Wenlock on a charge, trying to catch up to the back of Corbs as they head through the banked left-hander of this Zandvoort circuit. Many a championship has been decided on that corner, and many tears have been shed in the outside wall of that corner. I've seen many incidents there in WTCC as well. So a very difficult corner on the circuit, and probably one of the very few overtaking opportunities. But that is definitely a dire last lap move as we're on board with Killian, who's caught his way back onto the back of Andy Boardman. So Browner doing a good job there, just staying behind him, using him as his pace setter to drag him onto the back of Boardman. But Killian not really in this battle. He is in this battle on track and could cause some havoc, but nothing he does here is going to help him finish in these positions because of that 15-second penalty he has been given by the race stewards for a bit of a misdemeanor driving penalty. So making contact with another driver and ending his race has given him a 15-second penalty. So the stewards here aren't taking anything. They're not here for bribes. They are definitely here to do their jobs. And Killian is on the receiving end of that for some misfortunate driving. Looking to get back onto the back of Andy Boardman, he was unable to do so though. So Lauren Corbs has lost that place to Owen Wenlock and fell back into the clutches of Nathan Pierce. So we see Corbs and Pierce back at it again, this time for a place down. So that battle, like I said, being taken off the simmer, is now back on the hot plate, but this time between Pierce and Corbs. So Wenlock moving himself up into 12th place, 11 places behind his teammate. but not a bad place to be at the moment, especially with all the moving and shaking we've seen up in the front. Only 2 minutes left to go in this race. The mistakes we are seeing are mistakes of plenty, and it's probably because these tires are long overdue for a change. As we go through now to P8 is Marin Danhausen, and he is being chased by Busnik. Busnik looking to get onto the back there, get some moves done, and move himself back into 8th place. He was there previously, but unfortunately throwing it all away, all by his lonesome. But he's well back onto Danhazen now. He seems to change his team name, like he changed his own way. But into the chicane now, he's managed to run his way onto the back of. Oh, no, I can't. I can't. Busnik makes a mistake from 9th place and drops himself down into 10th because I was talking about it. It has to be. There's no other reason why this is happening to that poor man. Right, it has been decided. We go back to Brauner now in 5th place. Killian has definitely brought himself onto the back of Boardman, and that has brought Brauner with. But who else is brought with is Verwey. Verwey has moved himself into this battle. So just behind Brauner. Oh, Pierce, unfortunately, on the battle there with Corbs, has lost it on these very, very tired tires and lost the gap to Lauren Corbs. But with only 38 seconds left to go in this race, it's going to be a race. It's going to be Cruz's race. It's all over, bar the shouting. Big dive down the inside from Wenlock. He has caught some massive. Bosnick back up into P10. So he's got himself ahead of Danhausen. So hopefully he stays there now. I'm going to stop talking about him. Can we move to someone else? So unfortunately, off camera somewhere, Danhausen made a mistake and has dropped himself back behind Busnik. So Busnik able to move himself up to 10th place. It seems like every time we move away from this man, he moves up. And every time we come back to him, he moves down. So I think in his helmet, he's hoping, guys, please, let's not watch me. Let's watch someone else. But back to the front, it's Lucas Kreuzer. And Felix de Jong crosses the line as champion of the SimGrid Super Trofeo Mini Championship. Just behind him was Andy Boardman. And obviously on the track, but not in the results, will be Killian with Breuner just behind him. So Killian able to keep himself inside the top 6. Oh, Danhausen up to P8. That's Busnik in 10th. Danhausen up to P8 and Geneva in 9th. So Busnik, 10th is where you're going to stay, my man. Moritz Danhausen moves himself up into 8th place off camera with Geneva in 9th. Busnik in 10th ahead of what looks like Busnik in 10th ahead of Danhausen, the other Danhausen, Wenlock, Corbs, and Pierce. Handler rounding out the top 15. Roland in 16th. So actually, whoa, big off in the back there just before the line. That looked like Roland just banging it into the wall just before they crossed the line. Obviously trying hard to get past the ailing car of Handler. So Roland from Happy Wide Racing, obviously not too tough for this finishing position. As we have a look at our first SimGrid Super Trofeo Mini Championship champion, Felix de Jong, by that of only 1 point. The winner of the race was obviously Lucas the Cruiser Kreuzer, but unfortunately we didn't have a look at him too much. He was way out in the front. So well done to Felix de Jong on taking that championship. Kreuzer must be absolutely kicking himself. 4 pole positions. He probably led the most laps out of the entire championship. And unfortunately, that race at Zolder costing him a possible championship win. That absolutely that 5-second penalty. It definitely was the 5-second penalty that cost this man his championship win in the Super Trofeo mini series hosted by SimGrid. But there he is, our champion, Felix de Jong, champion of the SimGrid Super Trofeo mini series. Great race from him. Almost threw it away mid-race there. I thought that was going to be the end of it and he was going to hand it back to Cruiser. But able to hold off the advances of Andy Boardman ahead of Breuner, Verwey, Killian, Ryan Whitlock, Don Hazen, Geneva, and Busnik. Busnik able to finish in 10th, even with probably the biggest commentator's curse I've had in my entire career. Cody Pride dropping, eventually ending in, where did he finish? Cody. Unfortunately, Cody Pride didn't. didn't DNF in the didn't finish in this race and got himself a DNF. Still trying to figure out how this car works, but I'm sure he'll get it right as we move into the rest of the series. But as we move into another series, so hopefully he'll figure out how that car works going forward.
Green light, go, go, go.
Guys, if you are interested in ACC and you love the racing that we've been showing you and how great it is, there is a discount on Steam at the moment. It is 40% off. So make sure you do yourself a favor and run across there and have a look at it. But this brings to our close the first of the SimGrid Super Trofeo mini series. Hopefully we have some more of those. And congratulations to all our competitors from wonderful racing. I do have to say a major thank you to all those involved in the back house. We were all volunteers here at SimGrid, putting this together for all of you. So please, if you guys show all your appreciation to them, I know I do. And well done to our winner of the series, Felix de Jong, and some of the great racing we saw throughout with a lot of our drivers. And hopefully we see you again soon in the next of our series. Stay tuned to Discord and we'll let you know what's coming up next.